What's up, everybody? If you want to join the greatest online Star Wars community, the Fandom Menace, make sure you hit that subscribe button before today's video starts, so you don't miss out on any updates and you're always the first to know when our newest videos go live.
The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
Star Wars is in a bad place. In the last 2 years since the release of The Last Jedi, each subsequent moment has become the worst moment in Star Wars history. If it's not the bad movies, bland characters, or garbage toy selection that kills your interest in Star Wars, it may be the constant attack on fans, outright lies by the excess media, and a lot more. If you've been following this channel, and if you're new, welcome, subscribe, and thank you for joining, then you've been following the decline of the Star Wars brand, and a sad decline it has been. In the years between The Force Awakens and Rogue One, there were definitely fans displeased with the direction of Disney Star Wars. But once The Last Jedi was released, the floodgates opened and Disney Star Wars began to drown in its own smug reassurance that Star Wars was forever. How wrong they were. As we've stated in the past, the entertainment business is just that, a business. And when you don't deliver, you don't eat. In the case of Star Wars, the former brand of brands, it's failing to deliver, big time. As the newest theme park, Galaxy's Edge, is failing to impress anyone. Since the opening of the park, we've seen reports of low attendance, dissatisfied guests, and overpriced drinks. But hey, that's Disneyland for you. If you've ever questioned what Disney has done with Star Wars and were less than 100% satisfied with it, you were labeled a troll, alt-right, Russian bot, etc. But now you can be labeled something else. Correct. Disney falls most since 2015 as Star Wars stumble slams results. Walt Disney Company's shares took their worst tumble in nearly 4 years after the opening of the most highly anticipated theme park attraction in the company's history fell flat, hammering results in its latest quarter. Profit at the company's domestic reports slumped in the period, which was marked by the ballyhooed opening of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, the largest addition ever to the Disneyland Resort in Anaheim, California. The second version of the space-themed land opens in Florida this month. The reports came after markets closed Tuesday, and the entertainment titan's high-flying shares fell as much as 6.8%, the most since August of 2015. The earnings shortfall was a shock to investors who were counting on Disney's market-dominating theme parks and films to shoulder the burden of growth as the company goes head-to-head with Netflix. Spending on money and TV shows for the new online service led to a $553 million loss in Disney's direct-to-consumer division. As the Star Wars opening approached, Disney tried to manage an anticipated surge in crowds at its California resort. For example, the company allowed only those with reservations to enter the attraction for the first 3 weeks, but social media was aflutter with images of lightly walked streets and short waits for attractions. Sales of Star Wars merchandise slumped. Chief Executive Bob Iger said he didn't even need to advertise the new attraction, since anticipation among Star Wars fans was so high. But the company has since stepped up promotion of Galaxy's Edge on billboards and social media. Disney also lifted restrictions on employees attending the attractions and introduced some discount pricing for season pass holders. Big miss. It added up to a giant miss for the usually reliable entertainment giant. So here we have the one thing that no one can argue with: facts. And the fact of the matter is that people aren't as interested in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge as Disney thought. Now it could be the fact that you have to sign over your internal organs to afford a weekend visit, or it could be that Galaxy's Edge features nothing from the original trilogy. I think it's the latter, but the former is still in contention for a likely number 2. Speaking strictly from personal experiences, the sequel trilogy means nothing to me. I've never felt compelled to buy anything from this era of films, so the idea of dropping a cool grand on a trip to the happiest place on Earth didn't entice me. Now, if this theme park was based on the original trilogy with a full-scale Millennium Falcon, the one with the round dish, locations from the original films, and attractions that let me relive the adventures from a galaxy far, far away, then maybe I'd consider it. Actually, I'd do more than consider it. I'd be there, in a heartbeat. This is the first point I want to bring up. Disney has squandered an opportunity to create a cross-generational Star Wars experience that has never been done before. Star Wars is now a 42-year-old franchise. The original trilogy kids are now grandparents. Star Wars is something they'd want to share with that next generation. A proper Star Wars theme park would bring in the old, the young, and everyone in between. Imagine being 10 years old in 1977 and being blown away by Star Wars. Then, as a 52-year-old, experiencing the magic of the movie for real. There are certain feelings that you never forget, and seeing Star Wars for the first time is one of them. This theme park could have been a way for generations to recapture that magic of their youth, but instead, Disney chose to give us their own interpretation. It's funny because on film, they chose to rip off A New Hope. So why not just copy the film in the theme park division? The failure of Galaxy's Edge is hurting people outside of the Star Wars fandom. According to sources, the park's underwhelming performance is causing employees to have their hours cut. All anyone can come up with are excuses. There are rumors, and we do with those, that Galaxy's Edge may close and get rebranded. Let's take a closer look at that. Star Wars Galaxy's Edge may be closed and get rebranded. Following the news from Disney that attendance at their parks is down, it is now being claimed that the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge land may close and be rebranded. Grace Randolph responded to the low attendance news by tweeting out, "Fascinating. I know that my family likely won't go back to Walt Disney World until 2021, when all new rides and restaurants are open. How about you?" Which saw another Twitter user chime in as well. Caitlin on Twitter claims her son works at Disney and says the rumor circulating is that if in February the numbers are down when Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is fully open, that Disney may restructure and rebrand Star Wars Galaxy's Edge to Aladdin. The attractions and attendance have to get better at Galaxy's Edge, or it's going to get restructured. The rumor is that the park is waiting on the numbers in February to come in after the next attraction opens, and if it doesn't improve, it may be rebranded, she tweeted. Caitlin also responded to claims from another user that sales aren't down and have been exceeding expectations. "That's a PR spin. My son works for Disneyland. Hours have been cut. Attendance is way down. Sales are extremely low compared to last summer, and management have been told to ask part-time cast members to take ADOs, additional days off. The park took a major hit this summer," Case Sloan tweeted. In addition, the college program conversions were suspended for the first time in years. Some cast members are getting 1 to 2 days a week. No attendance, no labor. I was also told at Comic-Con that attendance at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge is basically dead and that no one is going, and Disney recently released their quarterly earnings report confirming that Star Wars is on the decline once again, and has been since the release of The Last Jedi, with reports offering kids are no longer interested in the franchise. More on that in a moment. The lack of Star Wars curb appeal goes deeper than just theme parks failing to deliver. There's a generational issue with Star Wars. Before Disney, Star Wars was perfect. It came, it went, it stayed in our hearts. It was the franchise that didn't need a new movie to be successful. The legacy of Star Wars was so strong that you could release toys from a 30-year-old film and you'd still make millions of dollars. You could make video games that sold based off the Star Wars name alone. Star Wars was an evergreen property, and I stress was. As Disney pushed out the old fandom for the new, they forgot to pay attention to one of the key elements in their strategy. Would that new crop of fans want Star Wars? The answer is not surprising. Star Wars is struggling to win over the next generation of kids. It's hard to say this as someone who grew up pretending to be Han Solo, battling Darth Vader and the stormtroopers to rescue Princess Leia, but it must be said, kids might not be into Star Wars anymore. Walt Disney Company's underwhelming theme park attendance last quarter was the latest sign that the intergalactic saga isn't resonating for younger generations raised on Iron Man and Fortnite. Chief Executive Officer Bob Iger was so sure fans would be blasting through the door that he had instituted a reservation system for visitors to enter Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, a new attraction at Disneyland. It turned out not to be necessary. Star Wars toy sales popped with 2015's The Force Awakens, the start of a trilogy that united Han, Luke, and Leia with a new band of heroes, but may have slumped since. Solo: A Star Wars Story, last year's spin-off featuring the backstory of a beloved character, utterly bombed. The Last Jedi, the second in the new trilogy, was profitable, but fell shy of its predecessor's performance. The next installment, The Rise of Skywalker, will have the very future of the franchise riding on it when it debuts in December. There wasn't supposed to be such a disturbance in the Force. When Disney bought Lucasfilm Limited in 2012 for $4 billion, it already had a template for intricate web of sequels and spin-offs as it hoped to create around the Star Wars brand. Marvel Entertainment, acquired 3 years earlier, had rolled out a series of interrelated movies with characters who went on to join up in the blockbuster Avengers movie, then Disney's most successful ever. The films are supposed to combine with TV projects and theme parks to create a virtuous cycle where fans get excited for each new iteration and can immerse themselves in the world of their heroes. There was every reason to believe Star Wars would have a similar path, with its endearing droids, otherworldly life forms, and minor characters like Lando Calrissian and Boba Fett who inspired their own cult following. Instead, some of the franchise's most dedicated fans have been sniping at the way Disney handled their favorite characters from the old movies, and the new trilogy's heroes like Rey and Poe Dameron just haven't inspired the same fervor among young people, with toy sales falling flat around each new installment. The Disneyland attraction, along with the Star Wars Land opening at Disney World, Florida this year, are designed for much older dudes as they are for tykes, with the Millennium Falcon themed ride and a cantina where you can debate whether Greedo shot first over vodka cocktails called Bloody Rancors. Iger has attributed disappointing box office figures to Star Wars fatigue, and he's pledged to slow down the tempo of releases. But that doesn't square with the success of Marvel, which reliably churns out blockbusters every 4 to 6 months. Some people delayed their visits to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge because they thought it'd be overwhelmed by tourists when it opened, Iger said Tuesday, channeling Yogi Berra. In other words, nobody goes there anymore, it's too crowded. So where are they going instead? One clue could be the rising attendance over at Universal Studios Hollywood, where the wizarding world of Harry Potter saw an increase in spring break visitors last quarter, fueling sales of souvenirs and butterbeer. Disney plans to parlay the robust Marvel properties into theme park attractions of their own, but isn't giving up on Star Wars by any stretch. Along with the rise of Skywalker, the company is debuting a live-action Star Wars TV series, The Mandalorian, later this year on its new streaming service. The Last Jedi director Rian Johnson is developing his new trilogy, doubt it, and the creators of Game of Thrones are working on a movie. This may be a hiatus, but Disney has spent a lot of money on Lucasfilm, and it's going to keep investing to make it a success. We build these things for the long term, Iger said of Galaxy's Edge. Or as Yoda might say, patience you must have. So now that it's being reported again by big reputable news sources, can we all agree to sit down and have a serious talk about Star Wars? Disney tried to make Star Wars Marvel, which it shouldn't have done. Star Wars comes from a simpler time and in many ways can't and shouldn't compete with modern entertainment. It retains a special place in the collective heart of a generation, but the next generation doesn't love Star Wars the way we do, and being told by those in power, like Kathleen Kennedy, more on her later, just pushes us away. I'd like to ask Disney directly, what was the purpose? What do you gain by alienating a small, vocal minority that can make or break your asses? Not money, that's for damn sure. I want to know what they gain. Can anybody tell me? Jedi Temple Archives has a great take on the entire situation that I'd like to share with you, and I'll link you to their website so you can find more from them. I only mentioned the Bloomberg article here because Star Wars rollout was announced on the same day that the article from Bloomberg was released. It's Disney's latest attempt to win over kids. Forces of Destiny failed. Galaxy of Adventure has some episodes close to 1 million views, but many episodes have fewer clicks than most Forces of Destiny episodes. It remains to be seen if the new Galaxy of Adventure toy line will win over kids. What do you think? Is the media realizing that Star Wars has an actual problem that's not rooted in toxic fans, but maybe rooted in the kind of content that is released, and the characters Lucasfilm created, and that especially kids don't really want toys anymore, and don't feel connected to the new characters? Star Wars rollout seems to be yet another attempt to make kids care for the sequel trilogy characters. Will Disney and Lucasfilm succeed where all previous attempts apparently were not all that successful? What do you think? Do you believe the wind is changing concerning mainstream media and Star Wars? Because until recently, the narrative was rather different. But ultimately, box office bombs, tanking toy sales, and even declining theme park attendance cannot be ignored. Customers, and yes, Star Wars fans are ultimately customers, speak with their wallets, and it's all about the money. Always. Triple Force Friday and the release of The Rise of Skywalker, along with new content on Disney Plus, may decide the fate of Star Wars. If sales and box office are strong, then we may all hope for a better future with more toys again. Toys that sell. But if toy sales are a disappointment and The Rise of Skywalker underwhelms, then all bets are off. Maybe it would be best to start off all over again with new characters, but the next movies will not be released until 2022. It seems Disney has a two-pronged approach here. Galaxy of Adventure is more focused on the original trilogy. Star Wars Rollout seems to have a sequel focus, along with Resistance. You cannot say Lucasfilm isn't trying. But what if all these efforts don't have the success Disney wants and the franchise needs? What if kids are not all that interested in Star Wars? No matter what, in the age of superheroes. And this is where the new Star Wars movies so far disappointed. Even though the Jedi are, in a way, superheroes, very little is shown in the movies. Maybe The Rise of Skywalker will change that, if rumors are true. And finally, will Disney support a franchise in the long run that is only supported by an aging demographic of adult fans? What can be done to make Star Wars more relevant to kids again? To answer that last sentence, you can't. Star Wars doesn't have a future with the new audience Disney tried to cultivate. This comment sums it up perfectly. Had a chat with a friend related to this after The Last Jedi came out. She seemed to think that only the fandom hated The Last Jedi, not the casual moviegoer. But are there casual moviegoers who would choose a Star Wars film or series? Superhero movies are easier. Oh look, this guy's a bat guy, this person turns into a spider, this person's a captain of something. But Star Wars by this point is pretty strictly for insiders, who know the prequels, comic books, novels, etc. People who understand which version of the Death Star we're on, which Boba Fett is under the helmet, why the Empire is called the First Order, etc. And bafflingly, the Disney brand leaders have made it pretty clear that insiders aren't welcomed anymore. Like kicking the science nerds and mythology misfits out of your party so you can make room for the popular people. Only the popular people don't want your party. They already have parties. Thank you very much. In short, I'm now convinced that Star Wars isn't made for me. Therefore, I don't make any effort to understand Galaxy of Adventures, Forces of Destiny, or Rollout, or explain it to the younger ones in the family. And they aren't in any way telling me about it, because it certainly isn't cool. Superheroes for them are cool. Hard to see a way out of this for Disney. They already have their billions, so they can drop the franchise altogether and come out fine. We'll go more in depth next time as to why the Star Wars brand isn't popular with kids anymore, but for now, let's put the final nail in the coffin for Star Wars. I take no joy in being able to say I told you so, but this has been the direction Star Wars has been heading in for quite some time. Those who dislike what we do in the fandom menace or what we represent have 1,000,001 excuses as to why Star Wars is tanking, and they're looking towards the rise of Skywalker for vindication. Well, I'm afraid I've got some bad news. Here are Google trends for the Star Wars sequel trilogy. As you can see, interest clearly peaks at the time of release. If we look closer, you'll see that interest waned for The Last Jedi. As we get closer to the rise of Skywalker, when looking at a comparable time, we see that the interest in the final chapter of this lackluster trilogy is lower than the previous two. This isn't the payoff for the Avengers or the final act of Harry Potter. This is Star Wars. And while it started with a bang, it's going to end with a whimper. So next time, I'll be back with another Star Wars video where we break down the reason why Star Wars is as broken as it is. And we'll go into a little more detail. And spoiler, it has to do with a woman named Kathleen. But the Star Wars fun doesn't stop there. I've been out in the field and I have a whole slew of new footage of the Star Wars toys in decline. And it's as embarrassing as ever. So if you want that and a whole lot more, make sure you're subscribed to this channel. Now, I want to know what you guys think. Are you happy? Did you see this coming? No matter the answer, let me know in the comments below. Personally, I've seen this coming from a mile away. We can go back to the very beginning of 2018 where I'm seeing Star Wars toys clearanced for $1. $1! 5 weeks after The Last Jedi had been released. That says something. That's not a post-holiday slump. That is an embarrassment of epic proportions. And if you need to see those videos, well, they're here on the channel. And just type in World Class Bullshitters Star Wars Toys. We didn't invent a lot of genres, but we did perfect the Star Wars toy decline videos. Then you'll find a lot of those here. So folks, as always, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and share it all over social media. If you're a super fan of this channel, join our Patreon page. $1 a month goes a long way, but $5, which is only 17 cents a day, goes even further. That gets you access to all kinds of exclusive digital content, and the higher up you go, the more you get. So if you join at the $1, you get a bonus podcast every Thursday night. $5, you get commentaries. $10, you get videos, and the tiers get better the higher you go. Also, if you're looking for a community online, join our Facebook group. It's a lot of fun, a lot of great people. If you need to make some friends and discuss entertainment, well, this is the community for you. So folks, I gotta go, but I got one favor to ask on the way out. I ask it every week, and I'm gonna continue to ask it until everybody does it. What is it? Go out into the world and be excellent to each other.